Today I want to talk about when you need to make room in your pattern from your shoulder to your hem, but a wedge shape adjustment is not going to do it. So this happened in the workshops I taught this past weekend, my semi-private fitting workshops. We needed to add room throughout the pattern from the shoulder down to the hem, but we needed it in the upper back just as much as we needed at the hem, and we didn't need a ton of extra at the hem. And typically when someone needs room along the entire length of their pattern, I show them how to do a wedge shape adjustment, and I'm going to show that to you. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to control the spread of the pattern pieces so you can customize it to give you the room where you need it, so you don't have too much room in any one area. And doing it this way can eliminate doing multiple adjustments. For example, instead of doing a broad back adjustment and then letting the hem out, you can do both of these things in one step without creating too much room at the hem. So let me show you what I mean by that. I've got a back bodice here. Typically, I will draw a vertical line down the pattern like this. And if we're being, let me just put my seam allowance in here because, sometimes it's better to make your pivot at the stitching line. So if I've got my line, then I'm just going to cut up that line like this, and I'm going to make a pivot at the stitching line like this right there. So I'll come in from the top and just make a pivot. Now, when I'm talking about a wedge shape adjustment, what I'm talking about is spreading the pattern like this to add room all the way down the length of your bodice. This is super helpful if you are a couple sizes bigger at the full hip and waist versus at your shoulders and bust. This is the perfect way to make room down the length of your pattern, in the back or the front. You can do this, on both front and back of your bodice pattern. But let's say we really needed the extra up here, okay? So by spreading it like I'm spreading it, you can see that we're getting the biggest benefit down by the hem. So I want to show you how you can customize this simple wedge adjustment and get more mileage out of it. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a term called control points, which I've used many times in different tutorials. I'm going to go ahead and draw myself some horizontal lines that go out from the vertical slash to my armhole and then also side seam. Okay, so I'm going to do 4 of them on this pattern. And you want to position these where you need to control the spread. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So you can see here, I have made 4 horizontal lines, and I am going to slash to the vertical like this. And I'm going to make hinges over on the side. So basically, I am going to just make little hinges here, 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 and here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a piece of paper that I can stick under there. I've got a little scrap right here. I think this will be big enough. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is the easiest way to deal with this now, because you can see I've got all these moving pieces and parts, right? So you can see it's all loosey-goosey. I'm going to put my paper under here. I'm going to put the paper under my pattern, and then I'm going to anchor the side that does not have the control points. And if you're wondering why I'm not putting the control points going towards the center back, it's because if I do that, it's going to change the shape of the center back, and we don't want to do that. We want to keep our center back straight. If I was working in the front, I don't want to keep my center front straight. So our control points go off to the side where the armhole and side seam are. So now I'm going to just go ahead and put some tape here. And I'm going to start up at the top. So if I needed the room through the upper back, I'm going to spread the very top of this out like I need it. And you can see this is a full-size pattern. I can spread this pretty far. You know, like let's say I needed to do a significant amount. I'm going to do let me just slide those out of the way for a second. I'm going to measure up here at my first control point at the near the top of my armhole. Let's say that's 3/4 of an inch. Now remember, if I'm adding 3/4 of an inch here, it's double because this is only half the pattern. I'd be adding 1.5 inches across the back, right? So I'm going to go ahead and take a piece of tape and I'm going to just tape that top section down. Now notice what happens here at the bottom. I'm off my paper. I don't need a lot of extra room over here, let's say. So this is really out of whack. What the control points do is they allow us to control the spread of this wedge adjustment. So I am going to work with the second section now, and I'm just going to make sure I have my pivot in there. Oops, now I cut it. If this happens where you cut it too much, no worries, just put it back, stick a little piece of Scotch tape like this, and then recut the pivot, and the Scotch tape will actually act as a stronger pivot than just paper. So see, what I can do now is I can swing this in. So let's say I want to start, you know, coming back in. So I'm going to swing that in, and I'm going to tape that down. Well, I'm not going to tape it down right now. I'm going to use my sew tights to hold it for the moment. Then I'm going to swing the next section in a little bit. Okay. And I can actually keep doing that until I get to the bottom of my pattern. Okay. And you can see what I've done here is I've actually created a situation where I'm really not even adding much of anything down by the hem. And let me just, I lost my pivot over here. Hold on one second. Let me just get that going. I'll put a piece of tape right there. But see, I can pull this and spread it. I can open this one so I get really close, because I can't leave it like this because now this hem is much longer than the side I adjusted. So I'm just going to pull this down a little bit. I'm going to open this last one up and kind of get it close like this. Okay, and then I'm going to tape all that down. All right, and you can see what I've done now is I've created a situation where I've added room where I need it, but not so much where I don't need it. And where you put these control points is going to affect how you can shape the room you're adding. All right, so I just think this is a very cool technique. Now, obviously, let me just cut off this extra paper here. I am going to stick paper down here so I have, you know, enough to true up my bottom. Obviously, it needs to agree on either side of the adjustment. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to just draw myself a straight line from from here, up to the original edge of my side seam. Okay, and there might be a little bit of a curve here, but it just gives you a nice option. And the other thing is, if I didn't need any extra down at the hem, I could measure what I added down here, which I added 3/4 of an inch. I could measure in 3/4 of an inch like this, and I can just put all of that right back like this. Oops. Okay, so I can actually put it back in, so it cancels out what I added here. So I'm trimming it off over here, and it just gives you another option to create room where you need it and but not room where you don't. And it's just a simple way to work within the pattern. Now you can also see here that the armhole is a little funky. So you're just going to take your French curve and you're just going to come in here and you're just going to, sort of smooth that out. You might lose a little bit of what you added to smooth it out, but basically you can see here if I draw this, whoops, if I draw this like this, you can see I can get a really nice shape back, right? And to true up this, I'm just going to touch my original shoulder edges here and here, like this. Okay, so I fixed my shoulder, and I fixed my armhole, and I also put back or took off the amount I added down at the hem, because let's say we didn't need to add it at the hem, we just really needed it up in the upper back area. And then also remember, this is a very short, this is a, this shirt is cut off, so if I had more length along the side seam, this wouldn't be so dramatic, this little short side seam I have here. So if I had a full length pattern going all the way down to a hem, then this would be a little less dramatic. It would look more, you could extend it farther down and you wouldn't get this really harsh angle. But if you were working with an empire waist, this is another way that you could fit the top bodice pieces, and then then you can sew them to your lower bodice or your skirt pieces or the rest of the shirt, depending on what you're making. But you can see, look at all this wonderful room I added. And I mean, I added a lot. It's really unlikely you're going to need this much room added if you pick the right size to start with. So all these sections overlapped a little. This one spread, and then we just fixed it down here. So this is just another way to work within the pattern to add room where you need it in the upper back, or if you needed it, in the front, you could use these control points to, flex the edges of that wedge shape adjustment to make the room where you need it. So I thought this was a fun little thing to work on. We used this to fix the back on one of my students in the semi-private fitting workshop this past weekend, and it worked beautifully. And we didn't add this much. It was a little bit less, but after she did that and tried it on, it just fixed the whole, all the tightness in her upper back was gone. So it just really worked nicely. And it's just an easy adjustment to do versus, doing a broad back adjustment and then, trying to figure all those things out. This is just another way to get to the answer. I thought it'd be fun to share with you today. If you have any questions or comments, please post those below and I will help you. If you're enjoying my content, consider liking and subscribing to my channel because it helps me grow. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.